In this video, we are going to find the value of an expression when a variable is replaced by a given number. And we're also going to do some examples where we combine like terms. So let's first talk about some vocabulary. First of all, variable. That's a letter that represents a number whose value may change. And you've seen us use letters such as X, Y, or Z. A term is a constant, or it can be the product of a constant and one or more variables. For example, 4x and 5 is a constant. 4x is a product of a constant and x. 3yz is a product of 3y and z. So these are 3 examples of terms. Coefficient, that's a constant that multiplies the variable in a term. So here you can see that we have this polynomial here, and it's got 4 terms. 4x cubed, 2x squared, 3x, and 1. And 4, 2, and 3 are coefficients, but 1 is a constant. And what's a constant? A constant is a number whose value always stays the same. And you're going to recognize them because they won't have variables next to them. There'll be numbers like 1 or -3. An expression is a number, a variable, or a combination of numbers and variables using operation symbols, addition, subtraction, right? And then an equation is when you set 2 of these expressions connected by an equal sign, such as this example that I wrote here. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to evaluate an expression. So, for example, in this first problem, we have this expression, 3x squared minus 4x minus 8. And this expression has 3 terms. What are they? Well, 3x squared is a term. The -4x is a term, and the -8 is a term. In these terms, we have coefficients, right? So the coefficient of the first term is the number 3, and the coefficient of the second term is the number -4. The -8 is our constant. We are going to evaluate this expression when x is 3. So that means that we're going to substitute 3 in wherever we see an x in the expression. So I'm rewriting here 3, and I'm putting a parenthesis and putting 3x squared minus 4 times 3 minus 8. And now we're going to evaluate the expression by using our order of operations. And that means that we're going to do the exponent first, isn't it? So 3 times 3 squared, that's a 9. So we're going to replace the 3 squared with a 9. And in the order of operations, what's next? Well, that would be multiplication, right? So we're going to multiply the 3 times 9, and we're going to multiply here the 4 times 3. So 3 times 9, we get a 27. And then we have this subtraction sign, and then we have a 12 for 4 times 3, and here's our -8. And now we're going to, we have 2 subtractions, so we'll subtract from left to right. So 27 minus 12, that's 15. 15 minus 8 is 7. Okay, let's go to number 2. In number 2, we have this expression, x minus y squared, and we're going to evaluate it when x is -10 and y is -1. So we're going to go ahead and replace -10 for x and -1 for y. And you notice here we have a parenthesis and we have that square. So we're going to evaluate inside the parentheses first before we do the squaring part. Okay, which means we're going to do this subtraction here. We have -10 subtract -1. So we're going to take that subtraction sign and add the opposite. So we're going to change that subtraction sign to a plus, and the opposite of -1 is +1. And then we're going to add -10 plus a 1, which is -9 squared. And now we're going to square the -9, and that gives us the 81. Problem number 3. Here we have b squared minus 4ac. A is -2, b is 8, and c is 3. So we have 3 variables here. 2 terms, right? So we're going to replace the b with the 8, the A with the -2, and the C with the 3. So that's our first step where we substituted in the numbers where the letters were. Next, we're going to work on exponents, aren't we? So we see this 8 squared here. And 8 squared is 64. And then I'm just rewriting step, and the next step will be to multiply. And we've got to multiply here. We've got what? -4 times -2. So we're going to go left to right. We have 4 times -2, which is -8. -8 times 3, which is going to give us a -24. And we have the subtraction sign. So we're going to go ahead and change this to adding the opposite. Change both signs there. And now we get 64 plus 24, which gives us positive 88. In number 4, we have an expression with 3 terms, as you can see. 3x squared minus 4xy plus 2y squared. So we have 3 terms. And we're going to replace x with -2 and y with -3. So replacing here, we had 3 times -2 squared minus 4. Replace the x with -2 and the y with -3 plus 2. And we have a -3 squared. That's our first step, which is to substitute in the values of the numbers for the letters, right? Now we're going to do the exponent. So we have 2. We have -2 squared and we have -3 squared. So that's going to be our first step. So that's 3. -2 squared is a positive 4. And then -3 squared, which is a positive 9. And now next we're going to do our multiplication, right? So we have 3 multiplications here. We have these 2 numbers, these 3 numbers, and then the last 2. So 3 times 4 is 12. Then here we're going to go ahead and do these -4 times -2, which is a 8, times a -3, which is a -24. And then our 2 times 9, which is 18. Now we're going to do our addition subtraction. We'll go from left to right. 12 minus 24, which is -12, plus 18. And then that gives us a positive 6. Next, we're going to combine like terms. And what are like terms? Well, like terms are terms they can be either constants, or they are terms that would have the same variables raised to the same powers. So we're going to look for them to have matching variables raised to the same powers. So I want you to look at the first example here. And the first example has 4 terms, doesn't it? It's got the 8y, the 5, the 2y, and the -4. So there are 4 terms. And the like terms are the 8y with the 2y. So those are 2 like terms. And then we have the 2 constants, 5 and the -4. So a good strategy is to rearrange the expression so that the like terms are together. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite these and put 8y plus 2y first, and then move the 5 next to the -4. And now we're going to add these 2 coefficients. So we add the 8 and the 2, but we keep the variable. So 8y plus 2y is 10y, and then we add 5 minus 4, which is 1. Okay, example 2. This expression has 6 terms, doesn't it? 6 terms. So here I'm going to underline the like terms. So we've got the 5b squared with the 2b squared. So I'm going to underline those. Then we're going to change color, and I've got the -9b with the 3b. That's another pair of like terms. And then I've got the 2 constants, -10 and -4. So 5b squared plus 2b squared. We kind of rearrange these, right? And then the -9b is going to be next to the 3b. And the -10 with the -4. Add the coefficients, keep the variables and their exponents. So 7b squared, and then minus 6b minus 14. So notice how we worked with the coefficients, but we kept the variables and the exponents the way they were. Okay, example number 3, we once again have 6 terms here. So we have 3x squared, which is a like term with a negative 14x squared. We have the 12x, which is a like term with a negative 8x. And we have the 11, which is a like term with the 5. So 3x squared minus 14x squared is a negative 11x squared. The 12x minus 8x, that'll give us a positive 4x. And the constants 11 plus 5 will give us a 16.